Welcome into episode 15 of Hogs on the Hill, your go-to podcast for an in-depth dive into all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Join us as we dissect the victories, analyze the plays, and revel in the spirit of the Hogs. As always, episode 15 is brought to you by Homefield. Go check them out, Variety Sports in all caps, to receive 15% off their order. They're all the time with college football season here, dropping fantastic new gear. Their platinum box, their new Razorback tees. I believe they're dropping new coaches like windbreakers tomorrow. So go check them out today, and you can use that promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off your order. And guys, we're here. We're under 24 hours until the first Razorback game of 2024 will be taking place down in Little Rock. How are we feeling?
Doing great, man. Excited, and seems like you can't get here fast enough, even though we're less than a day away. There's a lot of high hopes for this season, a lot of expectations, a lot of questions that we want to get answered, and so I'm excited to see. I think Pittman, he said it in press conference on Monday. He's excited to see what players, kind of step up to that game day and improve their play, because there'll be players that do that, but then you'll probably have some players that kind of do the opposite of that and regress during the game time situations, with practice not being always a true indicator of how they're going to play on a game. So he's excited to see that, and that's one thing I'm excited for too.
Yeah, man, just like we were talking about before we kicked this thing off, I don't know why I'm so excited to see them play an FCS team in Little Rock. So, I'm excited to see them just go out there and kick butt. I think what I'm more excited about is seeing Bobby Petrino in action again in a hog gear. So that's probably the thing that's getting me going this week for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Headset, clipboard, play sheet and all on the sideline as he, announced he will be calling plays from the sideline, getting to be down there and all the action. So that's going to be, almost a reminiscence to see him back down the sideline there. One of the first games I think about or Razorback memories of him and, Razorback Stadium or War Memorial in Little Rock is that pass mallet to Kobe Hamilton right before halftime, that big touchdown pass. You had LSU defenders running into each other and, just a big score. So, think Bobby Petrino and you think War Memorial down in Little Rock, that's what comes to mind for me.
Yeah, 1,000%. I remember that play. I don't know. I was still like a sophomore in high school. Man, I got so hyped when I saw those guys just smack each other. I think they were down for quite a bit too.
I think you're right.
They hit each other hard, and that. And then, man, if we're just talking about some memories in Little Rock, just both of the Miracle and Markhams, that stuff is crazy. There's just so much history there in Little Rock, and I understand all the stuff about moving from one place to another, or moving everything back up here to Northwest Arkansas. But man, if they can just get it back to like the vintage War Memorial, I wouldn't mind playing one a year or maybe every other year there.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Sorry, Caleb, but I agree with that same take. I think that was one thing that got brought up last year with a lot of the concession issues and just the age of the stadium and kind of the state of disrepair, if you will. That's something that needs to be addressed if there is going to be an expectation for games to be held there longer. And I think, there could be some kind of cost-benefit analysis looked at as far, okay, if we, have this significant investment put into this facility, whether it's from state taxpayers or whatever the case may be, can the games that we schedule there maybe improve along with that? I think that's part of the reason why the games that are scheduled there have decreased in quality, is because the stadium is kind of decreased in quality compared to, the improvements that have been made at Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville, and just kind of the general state of like SEC caliber locations to play at, the locker rooms, things like that. So, that's not really up for us to decide, but we can have an opinion on it for sure. And I think that's one thing I'd like to see is maybe get back to some of those bigger matchups, maybe not your huge matchups, but, like a Mississippi State, for example. I wouldn't be mad to play them there if the stadium was up to par, in my opinion. So you might get a little bit better fan turnout, a little bit better TV showcase, if you will, and a little bit better representation of what Little Rock has to offer if there's some improvements, over the next couple of years to the stadium that get it up to SEC caliber.
I was about to say, you took the words out of my mouth there. That's what I was going to say, and that's my big thing. I don't necessarily hate the fact that we're playing in Little Rock, but the fact that they have year after year kind of refused to at least bring the stadium up to date, if you will. Whether that be the locker rooms, the facilities, the scoreboards, even the turf that they have there. I know a high school team plays there, but still, you got to think you play at the University of Arkansas and you have all the fantastic facilities. I mean, we've seen the videos of the locker rooms and the facilities that we have here, and you go down and then you play at Little Rock. You don't necessarily want to go down there. I can see maybe some of the athletes that are from Central Arkansas, Memphis area want to go down, but other than that, like, the facilities aren't great. You're not used to playing on that same type of field, or just that field in general, and so you have those different things. But I think I think it's bounced between ownerships between the city of Little Rock and then like the national parks for some reason. I think owned it at one point, so like they're playing hot potato with the stadium because I don't think anybody really wants to hold on to it and then paid for the upkeep.
Probably some truth to that. Like I said, we can sit here and kind of what if ourselves on what we think needs to happen and what's going to happen. But I am curious to see over the next couple of years kind of what the status quo becomes for Little Rock games.
Yeah. I really hope it doesn't go away completely. Just actually my buddy and I were talking about different things they could do, and he's like one of the most ardent like supporters of the game there. I mean, he's almost radical about it. He's gets mad. We were talking about doing like one every 2 years, and then every 4 years have a big game there, like big game like LSU, and make it at night, make it something where the atmosphere can actually be big, and then work into the deal something about donating to build it up slowly. Like, it doesn't have to be, especially if it's every 2 years, it doesn't have to flip overnight. It doesn't have to, I think that they need to make it bigger. If they can get it close to, I think it says 53,000 right now. If they can get it close to other SEC stadiums, just imagine how loud it's going to be. I mean, the late great Mike Leach talked about how it's one of the loudest stadiums he's ever been in with 53,000 people. Imagine you add another 10, 15,000 people to that. That's going to be one of the most intimidating environments in the country, in the SEC at least. And it doesn't have to happen overnight like that. So I think if they work on it and they actually want to make it happen, it can happen. But I don't know if they want to make it happen,
It's a lot of money, a lot of investment. You got, with the dollar being all powerful, you have to be able to see some return on that investment. So I think that'll be the big question mark is, if this investment happens, can we guarantee, that there is going to be significant games played here where the revenue streams will be, better than because right now, you can go get a UAPB ticket for $12. Whereas, if you had an LSU game there on a Saturday night at 6:30, and had some improvements to where there's going to be 70,000 people there, ticket prices are $100 or more, potentially. So, that's a tremendous increase in potential revenue stream. So those things have to be talked about and thought about. But, like I said, I could see arguments made for, any way that this ends up going. But to you guys' point, I would kind of like to see some improved games happen there eventually. But on the flip side, if that's not going to happen, I vote for just completely getting rid of the games altogether there. If you're not going to try to get it back to some of the classic feel, if you will.
Yeah. So those are some quick takes on the game in Little Rock. We're going to dive more in depth to it here in just a little bit, but we've got some other sports news updates and tidbits we're going to cover really quick before we dive into breaking down this game and kind of what we want to see and expect out of the team this weekend. As we jump over to Arkansas basketball, you see the clips. They're back on campus working. There's a cool clip that just came out, maybe an hour ago. Nolan Richardson visited practice and got to talk to the guys and, Coach Cal. And that was cool to see. But, as far as recruiting, Coach Cal is staying hot on the recruiting trail as Arkansas will have 5-star guard Malik Thomas visiting on September 13th. and 2026 5-star and number 1 player in Arkansas, JJ Andrews, has scheduled an official visit per his Twitter account for October 18th through the 20th. So a couple big name recruits going to be on the Hill for some visits, and Coach Cal still staying out there on that recruiting trail. And for some of these kids, especially like JJ Andrews, the position Arkansas has been built up to in the last few years from us, to more being on the national stage than it was back a few years ago during the Mike Anderson era. And then you add Coach Cal on top of that, you can stay home playing from your family, your home state for the Razorbacks, and get to play for Coach Cal. How does it get better than that for an in-state kid like JJ Andrews?
To me, it seems like a perfect scenario unless he's wanting to get away from home. Some kids want to go, a little bit further out of state for, personal reasons, whatever the case may be. But to me, it seems like the stars align for somebody like a JJ Andrews, for example. So I'm curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's kind of what you were saying, but he's from Little Rock. So, Fayetteville and Little Rock are two different animals, so I don't think if they can sell him on it, I think he would probably kind of feel like he's far enough away from home. At least that's me hoping. Okay, I'm not saying I have any intel. I'm saying I'm hoping. But yeah, no, for sure, playing in front of your home state and your family like that, it's awesome. But yeah, this just goes to show that maybe the Kentucky brand wasn't all that it was made out to be. And trust me, Kentucky fans and me just, we just don't get along. So if you go back and look at anything on Razorbackers that has to do with basketball, and there's 100 different Kentucky fans in there just talking smack, and I'm like, bring it. Like, just give me more views. That's all I want. So just keep going, keep clicking. That's it. But no, for real. Obviously he's a great recruiter. So I'm just hoping that, they're not right about this. Oh, he can recruit, but he can't coach, which we know he can coach. He's won a national championship. But yeah, so that's no question. He's always going to be able to get these guys on campus. And I don't know if it was from Hogbeat or something, but they were talking about how, I think it was Best of Arkansas Sports, actually. They were this weekend, or that weekend, the 13th, might be the most basketball talent that's ever shown up at one time. Because I think it's those 2 5-star guys, and I think it's a couple more like high quality recruits, or that they thought might come. But that's insane. And it's only his first year. He hasn't coached a basketball game at all in Fayetteville for the Razorbacks. So that's crazy.
We haven't even necessarily made it a full 6 months yet, and there's all this, So give it some time, and let the recruiting process go through. Him and the combination of Ronnie Brewer and some of those other guys that's on staff, Kenny Payne. That's some powerful guys that you can help recruit. Not to mention Ronnie Brewer brings the home state. He's a home state kid, home state guy that he played for Arkansas, had a great NBA career, and now he's back on the coaching staff. That I think that was one of the smartest moves that Cal did, was keeping him on staff. When you have a connection to the state like that, you want to keep that on board. Not to mention, he's probably, I feel like if Cal kept him on staff, he's got to be a quality type of coach that Cal sees in him.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, there's already some work that was done down the line that, I think Cal's able to keep in the system, if you will, where Ronnie's probably already reached out to a ton of these guys that were, 2 or 3 years away from being in college. That's how recruiting works nowadays. You're talking to these kids when they're freshmen and sophomores in high school. So there's already connections there, I'm sure. And being able to keep a guy like Ronnie Brewer on staff that already has that Arkansas mentality of wanting to keep guys in state, that's one of the things he's best at, in my opinion. So keeping that on staff and having that little bit of head start, that was a great move in my opinion. I think it'll only provide dividend after dividend after dividend as long as he's on staff for Coach Cal.
Yeah, and it's great whenever you have the talent that Arkansas does. We're not a very big state, 3 million people, but we have some of the most talented basketball recruits in the country. Nick Smith Jr. just a couple of years ago.
Moses
Boateng,
Moody.
I think that was Moses Moody. Bobby Portis, Daniel Gafford, all of them natural state kids, and it's a thing that we don't have in football because Arkansas doesn't take high school football seriously. That's just one of my big pet peeves, and but it's good to have someone like that on staff, especially when you have the talent that we do. And if you can get as much of those guys in there as possible, not only are they 5-star guys, but they're playing for the team they most likely watched it growing up. It's that extra motivation that I think could be the difference in a game in March. So no, that's a great point about having Ronnie Brewer still there.
Think about guys like Devo Davis who weren't even a 5-star, but somehow always played extremely well in March. That motivation factor, you could always tell, was through the roof. I mean, not the last year and a half weren't always the best, but at the same time, he really did provide a spark, especially in games where it just felt like you needed somebody to provide a spark. It's the in-state guys a lot of the times that are the ones that have that emotional connection that really find a way to dig deep and kind of provide that leadership and amp the team up around them. So I keep, to your point, keeping those types of kids in-state, especially if they're a 5-star, it makes it even better, So I think that could be a win-win situation.
Yeah, 100%. So as we jump on over, Arkansas soccer is off and running in full speed. And, we talked about it a little bit last week in our show where they're taking on number 8 Michigan State on the road. We kind of kept you guys up to date then, but we'll just run over some highlights. That match did end in a draw 2-2. An interesting stat here that kind of surprised me a little bit. Arkansas racked up 22 fouls and 6 yellow cards in that match and had to play the final 20 minutes with only 10 players on the field. Due to all those fouls and yellow cards, Arkansas did have two goals with 10 shots on goal for the match. And Arkansas's Kate Doyle had the first goal in the match for Arkansas as she equalized that match 3 minutes after Michigan State scored. Zoe Sussy scored her second goal of the season to give Arkansas the lead early in that second half. Michigan then will go on to equalize that match in the 55th minute. And Arkansas freshman goalkeeper Keegan Smith had an amazing game where she had 7 crucial saves in this match that probably kept this game, as close as it was and tied. And man, what a defensive effort by this Lady Razorback soccer team to, play the final 20 minutes with only 10 players and still, keep this game to at least a tie.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to where we truly stand, in the rankings and against other teams across the nation. We're ranked number 9 going against the number 8 team, so a really top 10 matchup there on the road. So that was going against us potentially, but being able to get kind of a true gut check on where you are this early in the season, playing a team that's as good as Michigan State is and being able to come away with a tie, considering all the adversity we had in this game, this would have been an easy game to drop late. So to your point, I was pretty excited to see that we were able to come away with a draw. Doesn't hurt you, doesn't help you necessarily, but it gives you a good gut check on where you are in comparison with the rest of the league. So I think we're set up to have another really good year in the SEC, potentially win the SEC if we can kind of get over that hump that we've hurdled onto the last couple of years in the SEC championships. But I think this is going to be another great year. You've got a lot of really good talent on this team with some returners and some transfers. And, that's kind of the way of the world in college sports nowadays, is being able to blend that combination. And I think we've done just that. I'm excited to see how the rest of this year goes. If we're able to kind of build and improve week in and week out how you want to, that can make this, game that was a draw, early here in August to end up being a much needed win late in the year. So I'm excited to see how we improve week in and week out.
Yeah, no. So I'm not a big soccer guy, right? I don't follow MLS or anything like that. But boy, do I get excited about these girls playing for the Hogs. That's within. If Arkansas had a basket weaving competition in the SEC, I would be there cheering them on. But man, it's just crazy how good this athletic department has gotten in the last few years, and they're part of that. They're a big part of that. And I think we talked the last time I was on about how like they just can't get over that hump. They get to the Elite Eight, and I just don't see them dropping some stuff this year. Right now, at least the last time I looked, they were number one in the SEC. I think Texas was behind them. And I don't know how good Texas soccer is, but man, can you imagine that game? That's going to be an awesome game. Is it in Fayetteville or is it in Austin?
Let's see here. It is in Austin, unfortunately.
That hurts.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get. Yeah, I know. I'm going to have to get tickets to that game, but nah. I'm not going all the way to Austin.
Not
I have to go that far into Texas. It ain't worth it.
That's very true. The farthest I'm going to go is Dallas to Jerry World to see the Hawks take on A&M. But that's a story for another day. As we continue, they came back home, played Northwestern State on the 25th, so this previous Sunday. And they came back and responded with a 10-0, or in soccer terms, nil win over Northwestern State, where you had 8 different Razorbacks scoring in this match. Bellafield and Emma Johns each scored 2 goals apiece. And both of those players were in the second half. The Hogs scored 10 goals for the first time in program history, had a total of 47 shots with 26 shots on goal, which was the most in the Colby Hale era. Arkansas held Northwestern State to just 1 shot for the entire match, which was the fewest since 2018. And those goals were scored in order by Ava Tankersley, Kate Doyle, Sophia Aragon, Cora Hare, Bellafield, Emma Johns twice back-to-back, Van Fitch, Kendall Ewerts, and Bellafield to wrap things up. And man, we were at this game and they were scoring fast and furiously.
Yeah, it's, like I was kind of saying, this is another one of those scenarios where it's that gut check of, okay, where are we at? How good is our team actually? When you can handle the teams that you're supposed to beat and blow them out like this, it's similar to like football. For example, the Hog football team is favored to beat UAPB by 54 points. I'm not sure we're going to cover that, but that's the expectation. So whenever you're able to cover that expectation and maybe exceed that expectation, it makes your team look even better. So this is a prime example. We were obviously supposed to win this game. To win it 10-0, I think that probably was a little bit of an exceeds expectation result. So it's a good thing to see that you're able to handle the teams that you're supposed to very, very easily, and that your talent level is where you thought it was. So it's just further verification and proof that this is going to be a great year. That Michigan State game wasn't a fluke. We're just as good to compete with the top 10 teams in the country. We are one of those top 10 teams, in my opinion. I think we'll stay there most of the year, at least in the top 20, top 25 for sure. So I would expect to see us, competing week in and week out, no matter who our opponent is. And these are, in my opinion, 2 games that really proved that early on. Especially the more chemistry you get between some of these players, as we do have some new faces. So it's going to be an exciting year. It's going to be one of those years where I think we might have even more records broken on attendance for some of these home games, just with what this team's able to do and some of the hype that they've consistently provided over the last couple of seasons. There's no reason to not get excited about this team.
Yeah, man, just that stat about that's the lowest shot since 2018. That's insane. Just 1 shot.
That's insane. That really is wild statistics. That's called beating the brakes off of who you're playing.
Yeah. And then put in the fact that the game before they had 10 players. How long were they with 10 players?
20 minutes of the second half.
20 minutes, and they didn't give up the lead. That's impressive. Funny story, anecdotal about that game. Okay, so I have a friend who does the PA for soccer, right? And then I work with someone who does the yellow coat people, the security. And she knows that he does that. And today she was like, hey, your friend got super bored the other day because he kept saying every single goal was a little bit less enthusiastic. And he's like, by the 10th one, he was just like, it's another goal, or something like that. And I'm like, yep, that's a lot of goals, because that's his favorite part. He loves the yellow and gold. It's just like as obnoxious as you can get because he's, it's Jacob. He's like that. But still, that's incredible, and I can't wait to see what they do against some big time stuff, big time competition, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, 100%. So they'll take the pitch again tomorrow, as well as the football team at 7:00 tomorrow. So they get started 30 minutes later, but they'll be taking on Gonzaga tomorrow. A note for this game: there are 2 Razorbacks on the team, Kate Doyle and Kelsey Euler, that will be going up against their former team in Gonzaga. So they transferred here in the offseason. Gonzaga does come in with a record of 1-1-1 with 1 loss to Utah 2-1, a draw with Cal 1-1, and a win against Kansas State 2-0.
Be a good matchup.
And so, after, that draw with Michigan State and that win on Sunday, Arkansas was ranked number 6 by the United Soccer coaches and number 10 by Top Draw Soccer. So, like Seth said, staying in that top 10, I'm sure we'll stay there as long as we keep being competitive and keep those wins coming. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting season for Colby Hale and this Lady Razorback soccer team. And so we will jump over now and get started on talking about Arkansas versus UAPB in more depth. But before we do, tomorrow is kickoff. Saturday is kickoff for the rest of college football week 1. So get out there and get you some Scarlet Letter, brought to you by Core Brewing up here in Northwest Arkansas, our proud sponsor here. So go check them out. Get them at your most local liquor stores. They have some great flavors out there. Their newly released vodka soda should be out there. Triple Berry. It's fantastic. Go check them out today. But, if you guys watched I know it's sent over to you, Seth, but that press conference on Monday from Coach Pittman, he went through, we got the depth chart released on Monday, what you can consider a depth chart with this being the first game. There were some interesting things on that depth chart, a few of those oars, and we're going to talk about that. But, one of the biggest things, we'll just run through some points here, is you had Andrew Armstrong, your starting X receiver, Isaiah Satania, your starting W receiver, and Tyrone Broden slated as your starting Z receiver, as your starting wide receivers. A note for Andrew Armstrong, he will be available this game, but per Coach Pittman, he's been dealing with a toe injury, so he is not going to start the game. But those are your 3 starters. There's going to be more that get mixed in to the game as you go, and this could change some. But, I'm glad to get to see Isaiah Satania get that starting job, at least for this game anyway. Because we know, what he can do. He's got that speed. We saw glimpses of it last year. So it should be interesting there. Thoughts on those wide receivers?
Yeah. Go ahead, Austin. Sorry, buddy.
Okay. Sorry. Man, I'm excited to see Isaiah Satania there. That's not who I thought would come out first on the depth chart. I thought it would be Tesla, but I like having that speedy option there, Tesla works better in the slot, but he's bigger, more like a possession type guy. Or he was last year. He might have a little bit more after the catch this year. Who knows? But I like having that option there, especially starting out. Tyron Broden, also, big guy. I'm super excited to see what he does. I think he might actually have a shot at being the yards leader this year. He might not have as many catches, but I feel like he can be a huge, huge deep threat down the sidelines. I actually, what's his name? The channel is QB Spotlight on YouTube. If you haven't ever watched it, go see that guy. He's knowledgeable. He covers like every quarterback in the country. He was talking about how Taylor Green is expected to have a better percentage outside the numbers than inside the numbers, or predicted to have a better percentage outside the numbers, which is crazy. That's mostly everybody's inside, especially in college, because the numbers are out. But when you got guys like Tyron Broden, who's 6'7" and can run like the wind, and then Andrew Armstrong, who's 6'4" and can also run like the wind going down the sidelines, I mean, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be options more time than not. If it's a 50-50 ball, it's a little bit heavier on Arkansas than it's going to be on some 6'2" corner. So yeah, that's great. But what's awesome is that Monty Harrison is most likely going to start.
I was about to say that you read my mind there. That's what I was going to say. He's the backup to Andrew Armstrong for that X spot. So, to see him come in and work his way up that chart to be able to, be with the ones and twos, as Coach Pittman calls them, that's going to be fun to watch, I think.
He's every one of us who, are getting old now, waking up with back pains. He's all of our heroes, man. I am excited to see what that guy can do.
Yeah, I am too. I think that's going to be a big story. It's the first time he touches the field. I feel like you're going to have some significant crowd eruption just to see what happens, man. And then if he starts, putting up numbers and getting involved in the offensive scheme and getting a couple touchdowns, I mean, it's just, the top's going to come off, man. I mean, it's just going to be wild. So those three guys, obviously, I think you could argue that they're probably the top three from a speed and reception ability and things like that. But the three you're going to have behind them, in my head, aren't much of a drop off. You could kind of plug and play them in the position. So obviously Monte Harrison is going to be behind Andrew Armstrong. Very similar body style, similar catch radius from a wingspan standpoint. The guy you're most likely to have come in behind Satania is going to be Jordan Anthony, the transfer from A&M, who's a freaking track star, speedster. So kind of like for like right there. And then I would imagine, Tesla can kind of come in and fill the hole for Broden if you're, subbing him out, just being that bigger body, fairly good wingspan, can catch anything that's in his catch radius. So you really, in my mind, kind of have two really good starting rotations, if you will, that you could kind of plug and play how you want to. Sub all three at once, sub a handful at once. I mean, I don't know. So the wide receiver, we've talked about it in our wide receiver breakdown. It is kind of exciting to finally see where it's going to shake out from a top to bottom standpoint. But I think the guys that are behind each of these three, the ones that are most likely directly behind them in my mind, are going to be getting significant playing time as well. And that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's funny how you said it there, because you kind of flipped it there. But it's funny to look at. You got Isaiah Satania listed as one of the starters. His backup is the 6'4" Isaac Tesla.
Oh, is it? My bad.
And on the other side of it, you've got Tyron Broden at 6'7", yet his backup is the 5'10" Jordan Anthony. So that's a little ironic there that you've got those guys reversed there to their shorter counterparts, if you will. But like you said, there's no lack of speed when you get to those, quote unquote number two guys. I don't think it's fair to say they're number two guys, because they're going to all play decent amount of snaps, especially if they come out and perform. But, you take off one speed. If you take off Satania, you're bringing Jordan Anthony. The difference is probably negligible there. They're both track guys, even though Satania dropped track this offseason to kind of focus on football. But, I mean, there's no shortage of speed here. And, when I think of that combined with the Petrino offense, if I'm Petrino, that's got me salivating a little bit there to know I've got all that kind of speed and that catch radius and size between, Broden at 6'7", Isaac Tesla at 6'4", and, Andrew Armstrong 6'4" as well. So, you've got a plethora of depth there with a lot of speed, a lot of size, and catchability.
I think it was this press conference that they were talking about the receivers and who would be like the fourth guy, in the rotation. And Sam Pittman kind of made a face and he was like, don't forget about CJ Brown, the true freshman from Bentonville.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's not the fastest. He's not the biggest. I don't even know if he has the best hands. But if you watch any of the clips you can find of practice, the dude just has great routes as a true freshman, clean routes as a true freshman. And when you, what do you call it? The spring game, just watching him before the actual game started in warmups, I'm just like, wow, this guy's clean, crisp. And then in the spring game, the only person on the white team on offense anyway, who really stood out to me other than maybe Malachi Singleton was CJ Brown. And I was like, this kid is actually pretty good. And I think, especially with it being UAPB, I think he might get some good playing time tomorrow. and I'm going to be excited to see him play, especially, home state kid and whatnot.
I think that's a great point that, oh, my bad, Caleb. I think that's a great point that obviously you're going to see these starters. You're going to see the guys we just mentioned as kind of the twos behind them, but there's a great chance you're going to see several others behind that as well. So hopefully that's kind of what I'm hoping to see.
Yeah.
Just really kind of see how far down you've got some significant talent, as well as just get these guys some playing time. Even if they're somebody that's going to redshirt, they can play a couple of games and still redshirt and save that eligibility. So this is a prime opportunity in my mind to get some of those guys some fun playing time, especially considering it's in Little Rock in front of a lot of home state fans. Kind of a road game sort of, but not technically, So it's got the writing on the wall to be a good game for some of these guys that may not get to play as much later in the year, to have a fun, exciting game and, kind of in a different location than you're going to be the rest of the year for home games. So I'm excited for those guys. Excited to see, what we get, how far down the depth charts we go at every position.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, and to like Austin's point there, you think about CJ Brown, he's doing one of those things like he's putting in the hard work and controlling what he can control. Yeah, you guys said, he may not be the fastest, he may not be the biggest, may not have necessarily the, best hands out of that group, but there's something about a wide receiver that can come out there and run some clean, crisp, sharp routes that gets these coaches' attentions and gets them excited. And that can beat a lot of these, super talented and super hyped up DBs. If you can run a clean route on these guys, I mean, you can beat them a lot of the time. So that's big for him. And like we said, I'm interested to see how far in the depth chart we get by the time you get towards the end of the game, see how many different guys have different catches and things like that. And so as we jump over, probably one of the biggest, position groups everybody's going to be watching, that offensive line. They want to see, is there improvement from last year? Well, they will be missing a guy that has been listed as an or on the first depth chart here, as Patrick Kudus will not play. There was an or between him and Emarion Harris, and Patrick Kudus has been having some back issues. Pittman said he's been participating in practice a little bit, getting some contact in, but he will not be playing this first game. So you'll have Emarion Harris starting at that left guard spot. Thoughts on this offensive line, guys? I think this is going to be, one of the most heaviest looked at position groups out of everybody. And I mean, you won't get 100% accurate reading against UAPB, but I mean, you'll get a quick glimpse at it and kind of an idea of how they are compared to last year. That true test will come next week as we go on the road to Oklahoma State. But, this retooled offensive line, we've heard about it all offseason. Pittman's talked about it all offseason. He even said it at SEC Media Days that to him, this was the most improved position group out of everybody. So, now we're about to see what it's all about.
Yeah, man. What I'm looking for is for them to stay healthy, right? You look at that depth chart, there's not a whole lot of people behind them. You already got Emarion Harris playing right now. There's 3-4 guys listed on the depth chart other than the five starting guys and Harris. So that's more or less what I'm worried about. But at the same time, I really would like to see these guys play quite a bit. It's kind of opposite of the wide receivers, because I want to see these guys gel like on the field, if that makes any sense. And last year, I with what's his name, Enos not calling quarterback sneak on 4th and inches, that really ticked me off. And not being able to get that kind of puts a toll on you as an offensive lineman. Like, that's my thing. That's no matter what it is. If there's inches to get to the first down, it's a pride thing. I should get that every single time. And doing a quarterback sneak with KJ Jefferson, that's like, well, here's what I did. I made the comparison that sometimes if you're a woman out there who and your husband is, down and out about something in life, what you do is you go and you get the pickle jar and you say, "Hey, honey, I can't open this pickle jar. Can you please? You're so much, you're strong, you got big arms." And you boost his ego just a little bit. And that's going to make his whole day. That might make his whole week. And then you just, whenever he does it, "Oh man, you're so strong." That's going to boost his ego. Well, guess what? The offensive line is filled with men, right? Give them something easy. Give them a pickle jar. Give them a QB sneak. That's what you need to do. And that's what I hope this game does for this group of guys. It's going to be a bonding experience. It's going to be a chemistry building experience, and it's going to give them the confidence that they need, especially if Patrick Kudus isn't going to, if he deals with this injury for a while through the season, it's going to give them the confidence to at least know, hey, well, we got Harris here. We're going to be all right. So that's what I'm hoping to get from them. I don't think it's going to be anything, world breaking, like you were saying, is UAPB. So I don't see anything like a revelation coming from that, but I'm hoping to see them build that connection together for sure.
Yeah, I'll add on to that just briefly. I definitely want everybody to stay healthy. I'm sad that Kudus isn't playing because I know there is a stiff competition between him and Marion Harris. From Pittman's comments, Harris has like skyrocketed up to in that competition level that, he could make an argument to start even if Kudus was 100%. So that's a good sign that you do have a couple guys that, down the line, once Kudus becomes healthy, if he ends up being kind of the backup behind Harris just because Harris has more playing time, you've got some, fairly even consistency between those guys whenever you have to sub. It's not going to be a big drop off, especially if they all have good chemistry through, the 7 or 8, 9 of them that are going to be the majority that are getting the snaps out there. So to your point, I'm hoping that this is a great game where you do get to see a significant amount of offensive snaps. Everybody loves to see the big plays and see the explosive 80-yard touchdowns. You want those from time to time, but at the same time, I want to see some sustained drives where you've got 7, 8, 9, 10 plays potentially, where you can get a true gauge on, do these guys communicate well together? Are they disciplined? That's the biggest thing I'm going to be watching for. Do we make a lot of pre-snap penalties or not? Whether you're playing a UAPB or not, that's something that you can control, and it'll definitely cascade into games later down the line if you don't have good discipline together and commit plenty of pre-snap penalties. Obviously, it should be helpful that we're in Little Rock, things like that, and it'll be a lot tougher test against Oklahoma State where the crowd's going to be louder against us and those types of things, and those can affect your pre-snap penalties and things of that nature. But this is week number 1 where it all comes to fruition on the field, where that communication has to be crisp. It's got to be clean. Everything's got to be understood. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Otherwise, you will have miscues. That's the biggest thing I'm looking for. It's not that obviously we should be able to manhandle the defensive line, at least to an extent. The talent level should be despairing that we are able to push these guys around and at least get push and run plays and have a decent amount of time in pass blocking. I'm expecting that. If we have issues there, then golly, we're going to really not have a great year. But I'm expecting that to be at least okay this game. What I'm looking for the most is staying healthy for sure, and then the pre-snap penalties and communication side of things that come into play for this offensive line. That's going to be critical, and I think you're going to be able to see a pretty good indication of that week 1 even. I know there'll be improvements made as the year goes on how well these guys play together, the body language that they have to read from each other, and how they communicate, pre-snap defensive lineups and call out blitzers and all that kind of stuff. I'm hoping Addison Nichols has a, really good communication level with these guys, as well as Taylor Green. All of those guys in unison is going to be what, keeps you from having miscues. So that to me, like I said, that's the biggest thing I'm going to be watching for in this entire game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you talked about, you hit it on Addison Nichols there, friend of the show, and I think he's been one of the most vocal guys about talking about how close and how much, this offensive line room has bonded and how much chemistry they have, and that they are, ready to change the narrative, if you will, from last year and show that they've definitely turned things around. You've got out of that entire lineup, Kudus is the one returning starter from last year. Other than that, you've got an entirely new offensive line. You think Az Nichols transferred in from Tennessee, Keyshawn Blackstock transferred in from Michigan State, Fernando Carmona transferred in from San Jose State. You've got Josh Braun back that is the other starter there. But other than that, I mean, so you retooled your offensive line. They've bonded, have great chemistry. They feel closer than ever. So, like I said, when we started talking about the offensive line, they've talked about it. It's been advertised all offseason. So let's see, the proof's in the pudding, if you will. So we'll see what happens on Saturday and go from there. And, these guys are going to talk about next is going to be dependent on this offensive line is, starting running backs. You've got Rashad Dubinion or Jaquindon Jackson, with Jaquindon Jackson probably getting the start for sure in this game, as, Rashad Dubinion's the other guy that Pittman specifically called out that said he's been a little dinged up and he won't start but will play. And then behind them for the second, I guess, 2-3 guy or 3-4 guys, you've got Rodney Hill or Braylon Russell. We're probably going to see plenty of these guys playing, seeing this depth here. But I think that's another spot I'm ready to see is like we didn't have really a running game last year. So can this offensive line provide the push and, the experience needed to give these guys options? Because we've got a lot of talent in this running back room. And if the offensive line can do what they're supposed to, that's going to be a big part of this team this year.
Yeah. Man, I'm sad about Dubinion probably not going to get as many snaps. I love watching that dude play. But the guy behind him, Rodney Hill, I mean, they sound extremely excited about that guy. And I forgot where did he come from?
Florida State.
Yeah, he was at Florida State, and then he went somewhere else after all that stuff with
Florida A&M briefly.
Yeah. So whenever we got him initially, everybody was like, Florida A&M, but you realize he was playing for Florida State, right? So the guy can play. But one of the big things that they like out of him is his play out of pass plays, his pass catching ability, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like they could probably play him like an Austin Eckler type of guy. That's also what I feel like they could do with Rashad Dubinion. But so I'm excited to see him play. But the one I'm really, really excited to see play, because his hometown is just like 10 minutes down the road in Benton, is Braylon Russell. That kid is a tank. So I'm excited to see him play. But yeah, no. And then obviously Jaquindon Jackson, I feel like he's going to get the lion's share of carries this year anyway. But I'm really excited to see what those other guys can do. Especially simply, we didn't see a whole lot of Rodney Hill in the spring game. Was he here for the spring game?
I want to say no, because at that point we still had Isaiah Augustive that ended up transferring to Colorado.
That's right. Yeah, so he came afterwards. So I'm really excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I've heard some comparisons. It's been a couple years back that he was on the Hill, but Traylon Smith, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Little number 22. I've heard some similar comparisons on just kind of the way that Rodney Hill runs, his physique, some of the ability he has to catch passes out of the backfield on like running back screens or just, little wheel routes and things like that I thought Traylon Smith was really good at back in his year and a half with the Hawgs. So, I mean, getting somebody like that's got that kind of explosive ability, just speed style. You tie that behind a couple of good offensive linemen, as well as some receivers that can block well out on the edges. Tesla, for example. I know Luke Haas is a good blocker. You give those guys the ball in the backfield and then go let them work on the edges, behind some of those guys that can block well out in the perimeter. So we've seen that in the past with Bobby Petrino. We've seen that in the past for plenty of other Razorback teams. I don't think it's going to be something that we shy away from too much. Getting these guys the ball in the backfield and letting them, stretch it wide and just kind of see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm be interested to see the bulk of the carries here. Like we said, probably going to Jaquinta Jackson, but see how far we get down the depth chart, in this game and getting to see some of these others guys. We'll flip over to the defensive side of the ball where, we broke them down last week, that defensive back room. One of the triple or here is you've got Marquise Robinson or Jaheim Singletary or Keon Stewart. You're going to see all these guys out there, depending on what type of defense you're in, whether you're dime, nickel, man, cover, whatever you're going to be in, you're going to see any number of combination of these guys. And the other one there is at that safety spot, Hudson Clark or TJ Metcalf has really come on this, fall and spring from being a true freshman last year. So like we said last week, this secondary has the chance to be very underrated on this defense compared to, you think all the hype out there about the defensive line, and then you've got the youth and inexperience in your linebacker room. But I feel like maybe some people are really overlooking this defensive back and secondary for Arkansas. I mean, you even heard the UAPB wide receiver kind of talking some trash saying, yeah, sure, they're big, but he essentially called them slow. So, if that's not motivation material right there for these DBs, man, I don't know what is.
Man, what do you guys think about that too? I was going to bring it up if you didn't bring it up about, let me see what his name was. Javonte Gibson. Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
I like it, man. Here's the thing. If you're playing football, you got to have the confidence in yourself that you're going to go up and compete with anybody you play against. And, all those players on UAPB, they got to understand, we're about to go up against an SEC caliber team. Granted, they may not be an upper echelon SEC caliber team currently. Hopefully we are. Maybe we surprise everybody and we are. But, you got to understand that. So I'm with it, man. Go in there, guns blazing, thinking that you're going to shock the world. You have that confidence that you're going to be able to compete with these guys because, heck, he probably does. He's probably at least somewhat capable and has significant speed, and that speed wins games. It can. I mean, there's a lot of other factors, but if you're fast, if you have a fast team, you can compete with teams that are bigger than you, that are more talented than you. If you outthink them from time to time and mix that with speed. So obviously we should win this game, but don't sleep on it either, though. I mean, there's going to be some talented guys on the UAPB team, and you got to think they're playing at home too, essentially. It's not like you have ULM coming up from Louisiana or something to play at War Memorial, that it's a true away game. These guys are playing in front of their families, their home state fans, those types of things too. They're at War Memorial, so they've got a lot to play for. There's going to be some amped up players on the opposite side of the field here that we're going against. So I'm all for them, talking a little trash, trying to get this game amped up, have a little bit of extra on the line, if you will. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I like it. I think he's gutsy.
Oh, 100% gutsy. We're going to – here's the thing. They see his name on the back of his jersey or know what number he is. I'm not sure if they have names on their jerseys. You're going to have some after play hits, or somebody's going to hit him with a block as hard as they can on a run play or something like that. They're going to find him on the field and try to do some damage. And I'm all for that too, man. Get out there, play physical, send the message.
They chuck him off the line, man.
Oh, there's going to be some banging. That's a good thing though, that you're going to have that level of competitive spirit. You want that. You want these guys to want it. You want them to play as hard as they can against you, because iron sharpens iron, and the Hogs are going to need that type of competitive play, to make us better, especially considering our week 2 matchup is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I'd like to see like Jalen Braxton or one of the three, Keon Stewart or Jaheim Singletary. I'd like to see them getting press coverage against them, or like Nico Slaughter if Gibson's in the slot, and just come up just like, hit him right off the ball. That'd be great. But still, I think it's awesome. I think this guy, one, the confidence, but 2, he's already starting to play mind games, Like you said, outthink him a little bit. Get him to make a mistake here or there. I think that's really cool. And then I was watching what's his name? the Inside Arkansas, the new John Neighbors place or company, and they said, you know what? No one's going to remember what he said if they lose, but if they win, he's gonna beat the man on campus. So it's all reward, little risk, except maybe getting your head knocked off in the game. Oh, and if he runs a crossing route, that quarterback better not throw him the ball.
I was about to say, you have another incident of a few years ago in the Liberty Bowl when Quincy McAdoo leveled the guy and made him throw up on the field.
Yeah, that's insane. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
I was about to say, so go ahead and run those crossing routes. Feel free, but you know what? You might know what is coming. Especially after you call out the secondary like that. Another position group here while we're staying on the defense, your second linebacker spot. Looking at your starters, you've got Xavier Sorey transferring from Georgia, slated in as a starter. Not surprising there. Brad Spence slated in as a starter. But behind those guys, for that number 2 spot, you've got Anthony Switzer or Bradley Shaw. Bradley Shaw is the guy that had high praise from Travis Williams in one of his latest press conferences, and that guy is going to be special. He's a freshman that came on. He was raved about his, football IQ, and so we're going to see a rotation here. But this is a experienced older player versus young talented when you're talking about Anthony Switzer or Bradley Shaw.
I think this will be good competition too. I think Bradley Shaw was a 4-star coming in, if I remember that correctly. So, can he live up to that? There's going to be a little bit of chip on his shoulder, I'm sure, because he's come up the depth chart far enough that he's having competition with somebody that's significantly older than him. That's got to be a good feeling, but it provides a little bit more of that chip on your shoulder. Like, man, I'm close. I think I can do this. Gives him the edge. But then on the flip side, Anthony Switzer, it's going to give him a chip on his shoulder as well. Man, this freshman who's phenomenal is coming up trying to take my job. I've got the seniority here, but this kid's so good. I've got to ramp up my play and play better and execute well with. I harp on it way too much, but I don't care. Mistakes, man. Those are what cost you football games. And the linebacker unit is one of the most critical units to, if they do make a lot of mistakes and are out of position, it can turn a 3-yard run into a 30-yard run for the opposing offense. If your linebacker reads the play incorrectly, hits the wrong hole to try to plug a run, something like that, or is just out of position from the lineup stage of things. So, can we minimize the mistakes? I think that's where you're going to see a lot of these guys earn or lose playing time, as if they're lined up incorrectly, they're switching coverage incorrectly, they're not transitioning. Guys that are running across the field correctly if they're in zone coverage, things like that. Those busted plays or mistakes, I think, are where you're going to see guys either earn playing time or lose playing time in these position battles where there's an or something like that.
That goes back to close. That goes back to something Pittman said. I think you kind of brought up at the beginning of the show. When guys get on the field, they're not going to stay the same. This is where you're going to see guys who get better or get worse. You're not going to have a guy go on there and just stay the same, because that competition level at some point, you're either going to rise up or you're going to kind of fall beside the wayside, if you will. So, like you said, this is going to be the test here for these two guys. When they get on the field in game situation, do they get better or do they get worse?
That can make or break, I think, the playing time for sure. And you may not really know after this game, that some of these guys may look like freaking all-stars out there laying the wood. I don't know. It just kind of depends on what UAPB's game plan is and how prepared we are for that to stop a lot of their offensive possessions. You think back to the game a couple years ago, UAPB didn't get the ball past the 50 till like the third quarter or something like that. So, we might look better than we actually are. It may be hard to, kind of know who really is rising to the occasion or not until you get, 3, 4, 5 games into the season. I think that's really when you're truly going to know, okay, who really steps up at game time and really does play better during game scenarios, who might not. Or maybe all these guys are, kind of built that way and step up quite a bit and make that competition level even harder on each other, which would be a good thing and something I'm excited to kind of see how that shakes out.
Yeah. So what you said about harping on mental mistakes and stuff like that, nah, man, you're not harping on it. I guarantee you, Travis Williams is harping on it way more than you are, because when you run it, when you run a defense like he does, when you blitz like that, you have to have great gap integrity, right? You can't just go in gung ho whenever you want, because, like you said, they're going to break off what would have been like a 2 or 3 yard run for a touchdown. So going through the game, that mental part of it is one of the things that worries me about this position, because they got a lot of young guys. They got a lot of guys who necessarily aren't the most talented, as far as what they came out of high school is what I mean. I think they're plenty talented to play in the SEC, but when is that going to break down? How far can you get into a game without it breaking down? And are you going to have enough people to rotate in and not drop in production and not drop in quality of play to keep your top guys from, breaking in the middle of a game? That's what I'm worried about with them, but they seem very confident. And so if they're confident, I'm going to go into this game, into the next few games, confident as well.
I think that's fair. And I'll hit on it real quick with Travis Williams being, a linebacker coach by trade, if you will. To take this unit, who they're maybe not as deep as they have been in years past. There is some depth there, but it's unproven depth, if you will. If there's anybody out there that's going to have these guys in tip-top shape from a mental standpoint, from a preparedness standpoint, from an understanding of, reading plays as they occur, reading lineups and understanding, what's man coverage, who's my guy. If it's zone coverage, what are the routes I'm watching for here? Are we running any spies? If we've got a mobile quarterback, that can change the way you play your linebacker position, kind of who is assigned to that. If anybody can get these guys on the same page and playing well together and communicating well together and assisting and leading the defense, because that traditionally is kind of one of your linebacker position roles, is to kind of help make sure everybody else is in position as well. Is your Xavier Story going to be that guy that steps up? Obviously, I think Landon Jackson, Cam Ball, those guys on the line are going to be providing a lot of that leadership as well. But you're going to have some strong communication happening at that linebackers level. So I really have faith in Travis Williams and getting these guys there. But to Caleb's point earlier, the proof is in the pudding once it hits game time on like how well that really does truly come together. How deep can these guys go in a game, with that game plan and execute well without committing a lot of mistakes and giving up big plays just due to mental errors and mistakes. If you're going up against, an LSU, a Texas, where they've got speed all over the field and you just get out talented, that's one thing. If you're still in the position to make the play and somebody stiff arms you and you're just not as big and not as strong or whatever, that's one thing. But as long as you are in position, doing the right things, in the right coverage, those scenarios, that's okay. You can get beat by being out talented from time to time. It's the ones that really hurt whenever there's a busted coverage and you give up a 55-yard bomb or some crazy broken play just due to lack of preparedness and lack of discipline. Those are the ones that really cost you games.
Yeah, that's for sure. I've got one thing, to say for that, and that's, coach. So, that's what we're going to see out of Travis Williams in this defense, and I can't wait. The final position battle here on defense that we talked about when we talked about the defensive line, Nico Davalier and Anton Junkosh. Pittman said once Junkosh got healthy after dealing with an injury, he really came on and was playing really well. You're going to see all these guys rotate because that defensive line depth, they're going to be switching them in and out, and you're going to have different guys for your third down scenarios and different things like that. But that's another one to watch. On special teams, Matthew Shipley, Kyle Ramsey, we talked about that too, where Shipley transferred in from Hawaii before the season. Kyle Ramsey, I believe, came in after the spring game, was injured for a little bit. So to see this kicking battle, I'm not surprised to see it still not, quote unquote settled, because, you're still having to replace such a talented guy like Cam Little. But, we'll see. I'm sure both these guys will get opportunities to, kick the extra points. I would love us to see us kick extra points more than attempting field goals. So
100%. I'm right there with you on that. I think a little bit of the lack of confirmation on who really is going to be your true starter is just the fact that Ramsey hasn't been healthy the whole time. So there's not enough comparisons, if you will, yet to really truly know, which one of these guys is going to kind of separate themselves from the rest. I think you give it a couple of weeks, we'll probably have a solidified, field goal kicker. You may have some scenarios where one of them has a little bit bigger leg, but maybe a little less accuracy. You think back as a couple of years ago, it was before Cam Little, where we had dude that could kick the big bombs, and now he was in the USFL. Yeah, Jake Bates.
He was kind of signed with the Lions now. He is on an NFL roster.
Right. Yeah. So when you hit like a 68-yarder or whatever, that's what happens. But anyways, he was kind of like the long field goal specialist. And then I can't remember the name of the kid that was more of the short field goal specialist. Maybe something like that happens this year. I kind of hope not, but I could see the potential for it if one of these guys excels more in longer field goals and kickoffs, and then one is a little bit more accurate when you're 40 yards and then when those angles become more of a factor, with the hash marks being wider in college than NFL, obviously. So I'm excited to see how this position battle breaks down. To your point, we're replacing big shoes with Cam Little, so it'll kind of be a fun ride to see where this position battle ends up.
Yeah, I was a bit nervous for it. But you guys pretty much covered everything. You don't have it in the notes, but they also had another oar with a long snapper. If you saw that,
but news today.
The news today, Eli Stein is no longer with them. So it is Ashton, and I'm pretty sure his last name is No, because I knew someone in high school with the name NGO and their last name was No. If it's not, let me know. Anyway, just to throw that out there. So at least we got that covered. But yeah, I'm excited to see. I think Matt Shipley is going to be the one who takes it, though. He's the one I hear the most about. So
same here. I think that's probably the case as well. But
yeah,
we'll see.
And so we dive into this a little bit more. Arkansas did last play UAPB in 2021 in Little Rock, won that game 45-3. Going in for expectations for UAPB, you can expect a lot of screenplays and stretch runs from UAPB and OC Tony Hull. He previously coached at Grambling last season. That's a lot of what they ran. A lot of those screenplays, stretch runs. And you're going to have to watch out for their quarterback too, because they've got a mobile quarterback on their side as well. And Mekhi Hagan, 6'3", dual threat QB. Last season threw for 580 yards and 3 touchdowns, ran for 163 and 4 touchdowns. So that's going to be something to keep a watch out, that dual threat, along with those screenplays and those stretch runs that they're going to try to get Arkansas out of position on, or kind of try to get the numbers and get the blocks and get a guy around the edge with, some of that speed that they have to kind of, like you said earlier, Seth, kind of counter some of that lack of talent, if you will, and kind of try to outthink and outsmart with some of these plays.
Yeah, it'll be a fun ride. I think this will give you a little bit of a test, for the linebackers, considering they're going up against a lot of lateral type plays where the play is happening side to side before it goes vertical. So a lot of that really does being able to stop those plays does dictate you have to be in position and be able to have leverage and keep runs inside if possible, get that outside leverage, things like that. So it'll be a good test. And then as well as the quarterback being mobile, that's going to be another one. How disciplined are we in staying in our zones and in our gaps to prevent any types of breakdown and quarterback escaping the pocket, or even design quarterback runs? Are you able to shut that down quickly? So like I said, I think we ought to be able to win this game handily. But I think there's going to be some good areas that are going to provide us some extra practice and some extra reps on some things that maybe we haven't done as much of in our own practices and stuff like that. So, and you really just can't, to Sam Pittman's point, you can't replicate game time plays and snaps and competition level and intensity in practice. You just can't. So I'm excited to see, who steps up, who plays well, who really steps up and kind of shows out in this type of game where you have the potential to have some big plays. You out talent them. If the guys around you execute, it can really open up lanes for you to come in and sack a quarterback. Or on the flip side of things, if your offensive line does well, it can open up lanes for you to have 20, 30-yard runs, or just the matchups from a wide receiver standpoint. I think we should have some really good breakaway guys getting open just due to speed, route running ability, size, things like that. So do we see some big plays in the passing game? There's a lot of things that I'm excited to see. But the biggest one being, can we play clean? Can we limit the penalties and things of that nature? Even if you don't have big explosive plays every other play, you can have a great clean game and I think learn a lot about your team, even if you don't see the Bobby Petrino offense in full effect in week 1.
Yeah, you pretty much covered just about everything. But like you said, I hope the conditioning is up to par with those linebackers. Man, they're going to be running side to side. They're basically just going to be doing over and backs all day, which sounds horrible, but I imagine they'll have some fun. But like you said, I'm really excited to see Taylor Green go out there and play against somebody other than Arkansas. So I'm really excited to see that, but I'm also excited to see what his legs can do. Because I imagine once or twice he's probably going to take off. I don't think he'll do it a lot. I think he's probably going to work on his reads, work on stuff like that. And then, maybe once or twice something will break down and he'll take off with the legs. But I'm just excited to see that. And it's kind of cool that you got Higgins on the other side, who's also dual threat, who's also an incredible athlete. So there's going to be a lot of running quarterbacks, I feel like. But yeah, no, I'm. It's just cool to see it actually out on the field against somebody else. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, and you kind of brought up there, what are we looking forward to see out of this Arkansas team? And one of the big things is Taylor Green in live action. Can he come out and have a strong, clean game where he comes out there, makes his reads, doesn't turn over the ball? Like you said a few times, if the play breaks down, show his playmaking ability and be able to get out of that pressure, take the ball for a positive play. And I think you don't come out and ask for much. Like I don't think you're going to come out and see him have a 300-yard 4-touchdown game, but let him come out, have a clean game, don't turn over the ball, throw for a couple 100 yards, couple 2-3 touchdowns, maybe take one in on the ground, but just come out and have a great game to start off your Razorback career.
Yeah, playing clean is the biggest thing in my mind. I think we're going to be somewhat vanilla on what plays we call and stuff, and that's not a bad thing. Call the stuff you play, you do well. And then, if you get a little bit of a lead, start calling the stuff that you don't do well. Practice it against opponents that don't know it's coming and see how it goes. And if there's some negative plays and some funky looking plays on offense, I'm not going to like it, but like we all as fans need to understand, okay, they're calling that play on purpose, not to try to gain substantial yards or to have an explosive play. If it works out that way, great. But that's probably a play that they struggle with some, that they need to improve on. And this is the time to call it against an opponent that doesn't know it's coming, that's a little bit lesser talented than you, to see if you can get that execution level up higher and get that consistency level up higher. I know that's one thing that Taylor Green has worked on a lot, is intentionally wanting to run plays in practices that he doesn't make those reads as well. He struggles with a certain read or a certain coverage of understanding, okay, if I see this coverage, what guy's going to be the one I need to check to first, or whatever the case may be. I hope to see some of those plays get called that maybe don't look as good as the first couple of possessions, if you will. I don't think that's going to be something that us as fans need to freak out about, because this is going to be an amped up practice, hopefully, at the end of the game. You know what I'm saying? And then if we do come out there and execute quite well and get a big lead, I'm excited to see, guys like Malachi Singleton, potentially KJ Jackson. What are those guys able to do? How do they look? Obviously, we've talked about the wide receivers. There's quite a bit of depth there. Who all's going to come in and get some snaps and get some balls thrown their way? Are they just going to come in for, blocking plays if we're running a lot and trying to get the clock run down? This game could go so many different ways. But it's going to be fun just kind of seeing some live action, to your point, Austin. It's not from practice videos where we're playing against each other, where these guys all know each other's tendencies and they kind of know what's coming, and they probably know what offensive things we're working on that day. So, hey, we're working on screens today. We're going to go out there and blow up these screens. And so that's never really a true testament to like how good or bad our quarterback's reads are. You heard about that practice where we had 8 or 10 interceptions. Was that really the quarterback's fault, or was that the defensive just knowing exactly what was coming every play kind of thing? So this is where you'll find that out.
Right. And so the thing I'm looking at, I'm looking for is him playing smart, making the good reads, the right reads. And if he's not, then you'll understand by the look on Bobby Petrino's face. That's how, if you don't know anything about football, just look at Bobby Petrino and how is he red? Is he matching the shirt, the color of his shirt? He's not making the good reads. But to get serious, I the one thing that everyone talks about is the interceptions. Let's see. In 2023, he played 8 games. He started 8 games, 9 games. And he threw 9 interceptions. So it's not horrible, it's not great. But the thing is, probably his best game in 2023 was against UNLV. He tore it up. If you haven't watched the highlights from that game, go watch it. That made me a believer in him, right? He's got a great arm. He can make just about any throw. I mean, not just about it. He can make any throw. All right. Now, whether it's going to be accurate or not, that's what they've been working on. So we'll see if that happens against UAPB or this season. But I want the interceptions to come down. But we were a little spoiled, if we're going to be honest. Everyone wants to bag on KJ. The man didn't throw interceptions. Last year, he threw one less interception than Taylor Greed did, playing almost every single game. And we were mad because he threw 8 interceptions. That's spoiled, okay? So, if he gives it to 1 interception a game, I'm not going to be mad. But that's more or less what I'm looking for, and whether or not he can keep it clean as well, make the right reads, all that stuff.
Yeah, and we kind of already hit on it earlier, but another one of those is just establishing that ground game, and that's going to be dependent on the offensive line. Like we just had that conversation earlier. Can this offensive line come out and do what they're supposed to do? Let these running backs, release the stable, if you will, and let them run wild down in Little Rock. And so game score predictions, the line is currently at minus 48.5 for Arkansas, over under at 57.5. Thoughts, any game score predictions for you guys?
So, if you don't mind, I still haven't released mine, so I'm not going to give the actual score prediction, but I'll give the over/under if you'd like. I think it's going to go over.
Okay.
I think it'll go over. As far as the line, hang on. No, I think they'll be. Well, you have minus 48.5 in the over under. Okay, yeah, over under way up. I'm gonna think it's gonna destroy 57.5. As a line, I think probably they're not gonna. I think they're gonna be under that. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a spread.
That's my thought exactly. I'm not sure how much we run up the score in this one. I think we're probably going to be somewhere in that like 45 to 14, 45 to 17 range. I think they are going to score more than they maybe did back in 2021. They may not, just because there's a lot of questions there. They have like their whole team's new. They have like 50 transfers. So where that could bite them, it could also benefit them. They got a brand new coach, offensive coordinator. They're going to be running kind of different style. They got a whole new team. So there's so many unknowns there. I can't help but think that they're going to find a way to maybe get a couple of busted plays on us with it being the first game of the season and get 1 or 2 touchdowns in, score 10 to 14. I think 17 at most. I think that's the max they score. I don't think we let them score more than that, frankly. But I could see this being a 45 to 10, 42 to 14 type game.
Yeah. For me, something's just telling me these numbers have been on my mind all day, and I'm feeling a 52 to 14 for some reason. That's the numbers that are standing out to me. And before we get out of here, we're going to run through some SEC pick'ems of the SEC this weekend as we open up college football. First one, Missouri versus Murray State. I don't think there's really any other way to go to this one besides Missouri in this one for me.
Same, right there with you.
Murray State.
Let's go.
Screw them Tigers.
I hate Missouri, man.
No,
so
for real,
that'd be
Missouri.
awesome.
I'm hoping for it. But yeah, Missouri.
Yeah. Oklahoma versus Temple. I mean, that's another easy one. Oklahoma versus one. I hate the word lesser, but a lower tier opponent, if you will. I think Oklahoma takes this one easy.
Yeah, Oklahoma same.
And then one that we kind of talked about a little bit before the show, Austin, Georgia versus Clemson. I think Georgia takes this one. I think they take it by a lot. Just with how they're coming off last season's, the way it ended for them, I think they come out with a little bit of chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, again, this is another one I haven't given off, so I'm not going to give the actual prediction, but I do think it'll be closer than what everybody else in the media is thinking.
Okay.
See, I'm with Austin on this one. I think this will actually be a close game. I think it'll probably maybe not be a shootout, but close to a shootout. With whoever can get, maybe 2-3 stops. If whoever wins the turnover margin, most likely is going to win this game in my mind. I think Clemson's got the talent to at least sort of go toe-to-toe with Georgia. But I think once you get in that fourth quarter, that's probably where Georgia maybe kind of starts a little bit of their dominance, a little bit of their depth. And I think Carson Beck has the potential to be the difference in this game. I felt like he was underrated last year. Frankly, I mean, obviously there's a lot of talent around him, and people think that, he's just good just because he's got a lot of talent around it. The guy can make some throws, and they've got a pretty good offensive line for him to stand behind and zip some darts in there. And I actually thought he played quite well last year, considering the hype that he didn't get. Anyways, so I think he could have a chance to, go on a game-winning drive or something of that nature. But I don't think Georgia is going to blow him out, maybe like some folks think, and that Clemson's on the downhill. I still think Clemson is an upper echelon team. I do think Georgia's going to win this game, but I think it's only going to be by 10 to 14 points. And it'll be a little bit later in the game that they pull away that way. In my mind, we'll see. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. As we keep moving here, Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech. I'm actually going Virginia Tech in this one. I mean, we know it's Vandy. Virginia Tech is one of those I think could be a dark horse team in the ACC. So I'm taking Virginia Tech in this one, even though it is in Nashville at Vandy's home stadium, where their scoreboard is not hanging from a crane this season.
Man, I hope that Vandy wins it just for Vandy's sake, but I'm going to go with Virginia Tech as well. From my understanding, they bring back quite a few starters from last year at Virginia Tech and have the potential to have a decent year. I think they're kind of that mid-tier ACC team, but let's be real, y'all. Vandy is a low-tier SEC and sometimes struggles to win more than 2 games a year. So while Vandy might have a more improved year, I still think Virginia Tech probably wins this one in week 1.
Yeah, Virginia Tech by a lot. They didn't just bring back a lot. They brought back I think the second
everyone.
Yeah, they brought back nearly every single player from last year. They have either the first or the second most returning production in college football. And then I don't know if Kyron Drones, which is the quarterback for VTech, if he can get a little bit better and they can really lean on their running game, I think, like you said, they could be a dark horse in the ACC for sure.
Yeah. As we keep going here, Tennessee versus Chattanooga, another one where this Tennessee team should just, like we said about Oklahoma versus Temple, Missouri versus Murray State, and kind of similar to Arkansas and UAPB. This is a game where, it may be close at the beginning, but then down the stretch, they just pull away. We'll get to see the first glimpse of Tennessee's new quarterback replacing Joe Milton and see what that's going to look like.
Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm a believer. Yeah. Tennessee by a lot. I am a fan of their quarterback. Shoot. How do you even say his name?
I'm not even attempting it.
Ima Leva. I don't know. Nico. I'm going to call him Nico. Because that's, yeah.
There you go.
Dude, I love that guy. And there was like a little bit of flirting with him coming to, or I remember there being flirting with him coming to Arkansas. It might have been the kid that plays at, it was Rashada is actually who I'm thinking of. But no, I'm a believer in that kid. I think he's going to be the next best quarterback in the SEC.
Yep. As we go down the list here, Texas versus Colorado State, another one. Texas should win big here.
Yeah, Texas.
They should win big, but I'm going to call a weird one on this one. This one's going to be tied at halftime, but then Texas is going to blow them out in the second half.
Okay, there we go.
That'll have everybody in the state of Texas.
Well, I'm telling you, man, Colorado State somehow it's like they always play good in the first half of games. You all remember that Colorado State game from last year. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Texas should thump them, and I think they will, but I think it's going to take later in this game to get to the thumping than some people might anticipate. I could be way wrong on that. With Quinn Ewers being back, the Texas team, they're going to the college football playoff unless something wild happens, in my opinion. But week one, I feel like this Colorado State team is going to come in, give them a little bit of competition early, but then Texas will win big.
Yeah. And in my opinion, probably one of the closer games we'll see in the entire SEC. You've got Florida at home versus Miami. And this one, I'm going to take Florida in this one just because Napier's on the hot seat this year. It's a big home game for them in the Swamp. I think they come out and he tries to prove his point because he needs to save his job. And, you want to open the season with a big win versus an in-state opponent, one of those, not just an in-state opponent, but one of those top-tier in-state opponents. And so, this might be a close game, but I think you look at for Miami, does Cam Ward come out and make some mistakes as he's in a new offense, whereas Florida has Graham Mertz back? And who knows, even if Mertz may not be the guy, they've got one talented freshman, one DJ Lagway that's laying in the wings, ready to go if Mertz can't get it done.
That's fair. I will take Miami in this game, though. I think their overall talent, top to bottom, they're a little bit ahead of Florida in my mind. And yeah, it's a home game for Florida, but the Miami fans are going to turn up. It's not that fight. I mean, it's going to be, similar to what we mentioned, UAPB and Arkansas. I mean, even though it's not at Arkansas's home stadium, it's kind of a home game for both teams. This could have similar feels to that in my mind. It's definitely a huge rivalry. I just think Miami's got a little bit more experience. I think they got a better coach, and I think that could be the deciding factor. But there's going to be a lot riding on this game, I think, for both teams because Miami has college football playoff aspirations, and then to your point, Florida has let's make sure our coach keeps his job aspirations. So I still take Miami in this game, but I think it'll be a close one as well.
I think Billy Napier might have that aspiration. I'm not sure about the big guys up in Florida.
Maybe their team, that whole team that rallies around him. I don't know about the fans of Florida. Who knows, man?
Yeah. But I'm also going to take Miami. But Caleb, you kind of convinced me it's probably going to be a little bit closer than what I think. I still think I think 2 scores at least. Miami over Florida.
I was about to say the line on that game, the spread is Miami 2.5. So
that's tight.
I feel like that's easy
money.
That's
about where I think it's going to fall. No, I think that's about where it's going to fall.
Yeah,
with your
40
point
to 35 or something.
Yeah, your point total being sitting at 53.5 right now. So,
man, that feels low.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I
don't really know enough to make a guess on that.
Yeah. As we keep marching down here, we're moving on to South Carolina versus Old Dominion. Another one of those situations. South Carolina, I think they take it. They've got a new starting quarterback under center too. After Spencer Rattler moves on to the NFL, but I think South Carolina takes this one here over Old Dominion.
Yep, South Carolina.
Yeah, Rocket 120 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I was about to say, as much as that would pain a lot of Arkansas fans to see, hopefully Rocket can have a comeback year for himself and him as a person. Unfortunately, he's not wearing that Razorback red anymore, but we can still.
I mean, it sucks, but I love that kid. I think he's one of the coolest guys in the last few years. So yeah, no, I'm a big Rocket Sanders fan, no matter where he goes. So
100%. Yeah. Mississippi State versus Eastern Kentucky. This one has the chance to be interesting. I don't think it necessarily will. First-time head coach. I think Mississippi State will probably take care of business, but don't be surprised here.
I think it's another one that's got potential to be way closer at halftime than anybody wants it to be. I don't think it'll be tied at halftime, but I think that, Eastern Kentucky, if they come in with a good game plan and Mississippi State makes a handful of mistakes with it being, early in the season, this could be a close game early. But don't get me wrong. I think Mississippi State does have the talent to win this game handily.
Yep. Same thing. Mississippi State. I don't know. I think they got something to prove, so I don't think it's going to be really close. So yeah, I think they're going to come out swinging.
Yeah. Next one here, Alabama versus first Western Kentucky. I'm Alabama by a lot. That's just all you got to say.
Yeah, it's not even a question.
By a lot.
New coach and everything. I don't care. They're going to crush it.
Yeah, 100%. Same goes for the next game, Ole Miss versus Furman. Ole Miss is an extremely talented squad this year. They brought back a lot of pieces. The one loss being Quinshon Judkins that left to go make some money at Ohio State. So, but I still think Ole Miss wins this one by a lot.
I'm with you on that. It's not even going to be close.
Yeah, same.
This one's not even going to be close from the get-go. Ole Miss is going to be up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah,
or more.
They got stupid talent over there.
Yeah, easy. The next one, the college game day game of the week, Texas A&M versus Notre Dame. Give me the Irish in this one. I'm going Notre Dame in this one.
Mm-mm. I'm the biggest Notre Dame hater you'll ever meet, except maybe some big teams or something like that. But I'm gonna have to give it to the Irish. Man, I'm not a believer in Texas A&M. I think next year they'll probably be pretty good, but Jimbo did a number, I feel. The guys he brought in, I just feel like there's not a great culture there at the moment. It's probably worlds better than it was. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with the beat that much there at Texas A&M, but I don't know. Notre Dame's just, I think they're overrated, but they're consistent, and I think they're a little bit better than Texas A&M at the moment.
I'm taking A&M on this one. To this one, to me, I don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. I think this one's going to be one. If you can break the 30 mark, I think you win this game. I take A&M in that matchup just due to Elko being a defensive-minded coach, plus the talent that he's going to inherit at A&M. Brought in a couple of guys with him. Definitely a good defensive-minded coach from A&M. I think he's got a lot to prove. That's his alma mater, if I remember correctly. So I don't know. I take A&M in this one just due to some of the talent that he's got there, and with it, I think going to be more of a defensive matchup and not as much of a high-scoring affair. I think I'll take A&M in this one, but I think it'll be close.
Yeah, when you look at it, the projections are close here. You've got Texas A&M at a -3 on the spread, with the over/under on point total being 56.5.
See, and I think that's probably a fair over/under, but I think it come in under. Honestly, it could. Maybe not, but it could.
Yeah. As we round out the bottom three here, Auburn versus Alabama A&M. This is another one where I think Auburn just takes care of business and it's the win here.
1,000%.
Yeah, same there.
I think Auburn's on the come up. As much as I think we have the potential to beat them this year, I still think they're a team that's going to be improving year in and year out under Freeze.
You Freeze, yeah.
Yeah.
Next, you've got Kentucky, Southern Miss. Another game that Kentucky should come out and take care of business. They got the transfer quarterback from Georgia that, has some talent. Kentucky has capitalized on the market of transfer quarterbacks over the past few years. So,
while I agree with that, I'm going to take Southern Miss is going to be the upset that we have in the SEC in week 1. I'm going to take them.
Okay.
It'll probably be close. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I don't know. With Kentucky's having a lot to replace from a coaching standpoint, a scheming standpoint, player standpoint. Don't get me wrong. I think they were building a program there and they have potential to still be good. But I think there's going to be a lot of newness and questions to be answered that Southern Miss could take advantage of. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go Kentucky.
Yeah. And then the last game here that is on Sunday, the last Sunday without NFL football, has the chance, could be a very interesting game. LSU versus USC in the Modelo Vegas Kickoff Classic. Ooh, this one's a tough one, but, I'm going to give the edge to LSU here and take them in this one.
So the last time they traveled out west to face a California team, it didn't really end up well for them, if you all remember. They're going to UCLA. Man, their defense was so bad last year. So this one's hard for me. Man, I'm going to choose USC. I'm just going to go for it. Go with my gut on this one.
Riley.
USC. I don't think it's by much. It's probably like a walk-off touchdown or something like that. But I'm going to go Lincoln Riley. I think they'll probably give it to the Tigers this year.
See, I'm going to go the flip opposite of you there. I'm going to go with Coach Brian Kelly, and I think what he's turning LSU around, I say around, they're always decent. But I think that defense is going to be dramatically improved with some of the guys that he's brought in through the transfer portal and some of the recruiting that they're able to do at LSU. It's unreal. And I think he's a great coach. And the thing that I was hoping is that he wouldn't fit the culture down there. I think he's formed the culture and blended with the culture and made his own culture of like this Yankee, Cajun, whatever. And that LSU team, I don't know. They scare me this year, man. I've got them kind of as a dark horse to potentially have some big upsets in the SEC this year, and maybe make the college football playoff over, a couple teams that everybody thinks will make it, like Ole Miss, for example. I think LSU has potential to have a better year than Ole Miss. I don't know why I feel that way, but I feel that way.
I think a lot of it's going to be.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of it's going to be dependent on quarterback play from Garrett Nussmeier that has not had 100%. A lot of snaps. So,
yeah, I think that's true, but I think there's going to be enough skill position and good play from a running game and defense standpoint that he don't have to. He can be a somewhat of a game manager, like tremendous teams of old, and still get the job done. I don't know. We'll see. For some reason, I feel like LSU's defense this year is going to be way scary compared to what they were last year.
All right. Well,
hope not, but we'll see.
Yeah. The line on that game, the spread is LSU -4 with over under of 64.5. So
I could see that.
Yeah, I like the 64.
Shootout
over on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I could easily see that too. But there you have it. That's our SEC picks of the week this week. We'll tally them up and look at how we fared next week. If some of the upset Seth's pick comes true, especially Southern Miss. But upcoming events, like we said, we got football tomorrow, 6:30 in Little Rock, Arkansas soccer at home versus Gonzaga at 7 p.m. And then Arkansas soccer at home again versus Western Kentucky on Sunday, September 1st at 1 p.m. And, there you have it. We have Arkansas football finally tomorrow, less than 24 hours away. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Let them know where they can find you at over there, Austin.
Yeah, you can find all of my content at razorbackers.com. And if you want to check out my Clemson stuff, rubbingtherock.com, all part of Fansided Network. You can also get my stuff from Twitter, Pharmasaurus Rex. Again, one day I'll tell you guys that story whenever we have time. But yeah, that's where you can find all my stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, so thank you again for listening to today's episode of Hogs on the Hill, and we'll catch you back right here next week as we start breaking down the Arkansas-Oklahoma State matchup.